everybody else is. And then you gotta have this thing done on Monday morning, between 9 and 12. Well, gee, I gotta go to work. So I'm wondering how much more before you go into that problem there in Oregon where the houses are all flooded and the city end up buying the houses. Because we got problems here. Like I said, the one lady here said 2 years, no. It goes back 4 years.
Yeah.
And we're just moving chess pieces around the table and you're going and says, well, it's a 1,000-year flood. We're there now.
We've been
Agreed.
Okay, so what about running a canal all the way to that creek, widen the creek, opening up that, having it, nobody uses that road anyway, basically. There's two other ways you can get down that 92 instead of, you can take C, but they gotta move water because we're not moving water right now. We're just holding it in people's basements.
And your proposed solution is to run a canal from, where are you talking about starting exactly?
You might draw
like you're talking about the west side of Westside Meadows,
right,
straight down,
okay.
across the road.
that's Croft Road.
You know, that's the very thing we did in '04. We tried to open up that section as wide as we could and get it approved as far as we could with DNR, and that's what we got approved. But we could only widen it as much as we were given the authority to widen it, and that's what we did, and that's as wide as we can get it right now. The only other way we can get water from the pond that's on at the end of the Greenway to Croft Road is to put in some other conveyances, pipes.
I don't think we're talking about that pond. We're talking about the west side of Westside Meadows. Isn't there a huge pond that they put back in there? A new one?
Correct.
Can't they run from there straight down to Croft Road? That would, even if it just split off and it could handle some more
Once
water.
it gets to Croft Road, then what?
Well, if they come back in that side?
I don't know, I'm just asking, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm just giving suggestions here.
You know, I'm just saying, you know, at some point it has to go from north to south, and you have to ultimately end up in some waterway, otherwise you're gonna flood somebody else's private property. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it's a good idea. I think your idea is good. It's exactly what we tried to do 3 or 4 years ago. But we're limited, you know, we can only do.
Well, I'm gonna have to put more horses in it because, like I said, if that Meadows, that gets built, everybody in this freaking room is gonna have to sandbag your house.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this is not the first time that the DNR has stopped us from doing things that we want to do. I mean, they do that quite a bit. They're pretty tough governmental agency, but I think we have to resubmit. That's what we have to do. Resubmit a request to large.
I got a question, Mason.
Jim, Mark's been holding on for a while back there.
Well, just as far as that goes, neither here nor there at this point, I guess, but it seems like the project was approved to fail. It should go the other way around. You should have got permission to clear that out and then put the house. It's kind of backwards to do it the other way around. But I think definitely the soil that's been backloaded in there, the fill dirt, has had an impact. I mean, I've had 2 inch rains in the spring that flooded out the neighborhood. They didn't do it in the past. It wasn't a 10-inch rain. And I think you made a very good point that water has to find a place to go. Well, that place is blocked up now. It could have gone back there possibly. We don't know that for sure. But I mean, it's just a ruse in my mind. It's to keep pumping up. The engineer has looked at this from the developer. Their main goal is to get this done and make the money. That's what they're looking at. That's why we do need a check and balance. But have we ever consulted a hydrologist? Because I think that's what we need to do to really find out what's happening here. As far as I know, we haven't done that. And we've waited years. This has been going on for 4 years. We waited a long time for this to get fixed. And I mean, at least now somebody's saying there's a problem. In the past, it's working, it's going great, there's no problem. And one thing that has changed with all this rain is it is coming up through my basement now where it didn't in the past, even though my sump did run continuously. So I really feel like that backfill has caused problems with a place for water to go. And I guess really, if there's any way to do it, I really implore that you make this a cease and desist until we figure out what's going on. Because what does, I mean, not only blocking a place to go, what does all the weight do pushing down on that water table? Do water gets displaced somewhere? Is it pushing the water table up at us? I don't know. And what's another, how many tons of houses getting back there? What is that gonna do as far as the weight? Besides, water's not gonna be going through non-permeable shingles and asphalt and all that. And so, I mean, I'm glad to see that people are admitting there's a problem now. And I will wait for a plan. I know you can't just say, here it is, I got it. But I mean, we kind of feel like we're at the end of the rope here. If we don't see real movement about a plan, we feel like we need to protect our assets and move forward with legal counsel.
I have a quick question regarding that development. I heard rumors, maybe coming this back, that the homes built back there were gonna be slab homes, meaning no basements or whatever. I was wondering if you can, you know, if that is true and if that's the case, why are those gonna be slab homes? I don't know if it's just rumors I've heard about that development. I don't know if anybody knows the answer. I'm like, oh, why all of a sudden would they be like, well, it's actually, they're building it actually higher than John and Denise's, and the homes just across the street from us actually are.
I haven't heard anything about that.
And it could just be speculation, but I guess if anybody had an answer on that.
Could be the choice, but I haven't heard
We
anything.
in the approval process of Westville Meadows, what we said is if you're gonna put a basement, it has to be above groundwater.
How far above groundwater? What's minimum requirement for basement to be put in above groundwater, that you can ensure some safety to the homeowner that it's not gonna flood? And you gotta plan it for a 100-year flood, so if you say it's 2 feet, and you said you always add a foot or so, apparently somebody mismeasured there or something.
I'm just talking about Westfield Meadows because of the whole issue of groundwater, because that was a known thing when they did their soil investigation, that groundwater was shallow.
It's very shallow back there.
And that was known, and that's why everything is built up. Because we wouldn't have approved anything if it wasn't going to be built up.
I seen all the tubes they had back there, and they had a 6-foot wide, about 8-foot long hole dug in there, and it was probably 6 feet deep, and it was less than a foot and a half, with no rain from the top of the soil. I walked back there and looked at that. I don't know, I was curious why they had a hole in the middle of the field. And I kind of speculate now that the groundwater table back there is probably not more than a foot and a half full of soil. And that's why they brought in so much cover. And I still don't think it wouldn't matter. I don't think there's enough flow back there to put a basement home in there.
On the south end, on the southern end of Westfield Meadows, Roger can identify, there's the multi-unit is not gonna have basements.
No, it's gonna be slab on grade.
Slab on grade.
Foundation, footing wall
Footing wall.
with slab. And the reason is that if you look out there where you people live on 6th Street, and luckily I never built a house or developed a single lot there, that area is lower than everything around it. You're in the bottom of the bowl, and all you gotta do is look on an elevation map and you can be able to figure that out. And everything around you is higher. Where your water comes from that's really affecting you is not from the north, it's from the west. There's a basin out there, and I think the next corporate meeting should be all the engineers. We will invite them here and invite everybody back. And the engineers that do studies that are this thick, and you can quiz them along with Dave, we put all 3 engineers right up there, and a DNR person. There's a basin out there that's approximately 1,800 acres.
Where is that, Roger?
Well, if you go stand out stand looking west, and everything that flows to you is called a basin. Now the basin goes all the way to Pleasant Prairie, and some past Pleasant Prairie, and the way you can find that is drive up there and you'll see culverts in Pleasant Prairie that drain through.
This is west of us.
That's way west of you. And then go to Porter Road, and you'll see culverts coming under the road that drain all the way up to C and some past C. And then if you go down on Croft Road and you look out in that huge cornfield of leaders, all of that is a basin of about 1,800 acres that flows towards you. Now, when we developed Westfield, we knew the water problem you had down there, on where everybody lives now. So our charge was, we had to improve it. Now, this will be a hard one for you to believe, but they calculate how many flow comes through as just what it is previous, a cornfield, a field. And we had to, and I believe we cut it in half. We cut the flow in half. But we're only taking care of 400 acres in the basin. you've got another 1,400 acres, that's the land Mason talks about with the town of Union, and how do you control it? Now, what it is the only way I can explain it to myself or understand it is I think of a bathtub. What we put north of Porter Road is a gigantic bathtub. So all the water goes in the bathtub. Now, if you tip the bathtub over, it comes out real fast. But if you just pull the drain out, it just flows through the drain, and it takes longer, the same amount of water, just takes longer to get through the drain. Well, that's what the weir and that is designed to hold up there. Now, some of the questions are, is the V too low? Well, that's the engineering studies that everybody came through, and this isn't someone that they just draw up. They use computer models. It's really in depth. Should the V be moved up? That is a possibility, because maybe we can hold a little bit more. We can't hold 1,400 acres, but maybe we can hold a little bit more longer to let some more of it go downstream, so it takes the pressure off of that area. That's something we're working on, but as we said to Dave, do we raise the V? And he says, and his answer was, how high? We got to restudy it. Do we raise it 6 inches and find out it had to be a foot? Do we raise it a foot and find out it had to be 1.5 feet? So that's what we're working on now, is where should, if the V is okay, then that's fine, and where should it be? Now, one thing we've noticed is when that pond fills on the north of Porter Road, we only get to, there's 3 rings in there. We've only got to the first ring. So we have a lot of capacity.
I guess that's good.
We have a lot of capacity that we're not using. Now, if you go from Porter Road down to the end of Ring Hands or Westville Meadow, if you notice there was a creek there, and the creek was pretty much a sharp V. And a steep, sharp V. What Dave was talking about is the DNR allowed us to take one side of the V, and it happens to be the east side of the V, and they allowed us to, instead of it being like this, they allowed us to turn it and go like this. And now the purpose of that is storage, but we're not using it. It never, if you looked when you were on Porter Road, if you looked to the south, we never got out of the bottom of the creek bed.
So the water's never, not getting.
So the water's not there, the water's west, coming this way at you. And the reason is we're not using our pond. We're only at the first ring. We never came out of the creek bed. Now, where did it all congest? It all congested right down at the bottom, and that's the lowest part. And that can be done by a topographical map to prove that to you. Right at the very bottom where the city has a pond, that has a berm on it, because we don't flow into that pond. Now, we might have overtopped it, but we don't even know that for sure, because nobody can get out there to tell quite yet. We have our own pond behind that, 2 ponds. One's a settling pond, and that's purpose is to clean the water. And then, but in a rain like this, it goes right through so fast it doesn't get cleaned. And then it holds it, and it holds pond. But the bottom part's where all the pressure's coming at, and it's coming from the west. Now, the big question is what can be done? Well, I guess you'd say naively, my question was, well, why don't we just get a bulldozer and go in that bottom area and push a big berm up there, you know, like a horseshoe, and hold that to the west. The problem is you'd have to have such a huge horseshoe because it's so flat. You can't get capacity. You can't get any, you'd have to, our pond north of Porter Road is 11 acres. And we've got a lot of capacity. To get something like that down on it's really called a leader land, down at where that creek makes a turn before it makes the next turn. To get something down there, just the rough guess is it could be 50, 60, 70 acres to stop the basin. So they're called fingers. Every time something comes in, and we took care of the north finger. Now the problem finger is the west finger. So then there's discussion. That's why it's not simple. And Dave, if I'm doing it wrong, you tell me. But it's not simple, because to get the best bang for your buck, you maybe have to go further west and stop it out where it's higher so you can hold more of it. See, we're not getting any more or less rain during a rain. We're not getting rid of it. That's our problem. But if you notice this last rain with the 20+ inches, we never topped Croft Road. We never went over Croft Road, and we did the last time, the 4 years ago.
So you're saying half the system is working?
No, I'm saying it,
Or kind of working.
I'm saying we can do things on the north side, and we've done them. And you can go on a rain and just see that the channel's not full.
So you have to somehow connect the north side with the west side somehow, so it works together.
The channel is not full, so we got capacity. We've got room, but not at the bottom. Not at the bottom. Now, there's been discussions on things to do, and some of them can't be public, because, and the reason they can't be public only is there's negotiations that may involve purchasing land to remedy, and it's not a simple fix. It's going to take a lot of figuring out. Now, Dave came up with a short list of quick things that, I don't mean to say it like that, but let's try these things, and they would help us while we're trying to solve the bigger picture. Now, in the past history of Evansville, they've never done a regional study till we did one. And that's evident by everybody that's in the Abbey Cove subdivision. That's where all of you are. Where is your retention pond? You don't have one. You don't have one. The one you have is not Abbey Cove. It's on the Ringhand land.
So what are we going to do about
So,
that?
in other words, when that was approved, which was prior to Dave Sauer, that was approved with no retention pond. Because you don't have one.
Can you go back to that and say?
No,
I mean, can you go back?
that's back in the history of...
Amendments or something? Can you make amendments to certain things?
No, that's back,
Roger, how'd they get approved by the city?
that's back in another era of engineering, and I don't
But these
know.
people should know. I mean,
Well, yeah, but I'm just telling them straight that that was approved by a previous engineer. And
Okay,
that,
but then the city
Sixth
approved
Street
that.
wasn't.
well, the city doesn't, that previous engineer worked for the city. He sat where Dave sits now.
Okay,
And they got rid of him.
okay.
And they got rid of him because of concerns that weren't,
They go based on the facts from.
yeah, and they're doing and these guys sitting here, they're doing the best job they can.
Well, we understand.
And we rely on our experts.
Okay, but, so, this is wonderful, you're explaining it wonderfully, but where does that leave us?
Well, it leaves you this, it leaves you with this. To start with, you're too low. And that will never be changed because you can't raise the houses up. And you can't make the dirt go lower. And I think somebody made a comment last meeting, you can dig to China and you can't make a difference. So what we gotta do now is we've gotta stop the mass flow. We've gotta slow it down. Because everybody talks about the creek doesn't empty. We gotta slow it down so that the creek has time to empty. And for my sake, all I can put it in mind is saying, we need more bathtubs. Because the bathtub north of the town is, or north of Porter is working.
So Roger, I know for sure Tina, Laura, and I don't know who else in the neighborhood, we've hired contractors to come in to break up our basement floor
Mhm.
to redo the drain tile.
Well, now let me go on to that point for a minute, because I've been involved, I'm aware of some of that. Now again, I never did any house in
I
there.
know, but what I'm saying
addition.
is to beef up the system so this
Yeah.
never happens again, because we want to improve our property.
Yeah.
But is
But
that
here,
enough?
but now I'm aware of a concern that a person, and he's here tonight, he'll figure it out, and then I start talking about it. They lived there for 5 years, and they never had a drop of water in their basement. They never had their pump work till Thursday morning. Now, what has happened to them is a combination of two things. The perched water table that Dave talked about, because it's just taking time for that all to get out of there. And the other is, you probably will find, upon further investigation, that they have a poor drain tile system.
We know that already.
And that the drain tile was not adequately done. Now, that's not a city problem.
No.
That's a contractor
What we're
problem.
saying, can it be resolved
Yes,
with
it
a
can be.
properly installed drain tile system?
Yes, it can be.
you know?
But, I'm going to say this, if we have a great drain tile system and we're dumping it into the street, is it doing what that gentleman said, where it's just going?
Well, it doesn't quite work like that. It doesn't quite work like that. Adequate basement drain will keep your basement dry,
Yeah,
but it'll require pumping to do it.
right,
But it'll keep your basement dry, and you think, well, I'm just moving it out,
yeah,
and that's true, but you're also giving time for more of it to get away.
okay.
So you're saying what we've done is probably towards the positive end of the scope here, improving the drainage system that we had existing.
Well, I don't know everybody's situation. I know the one situation because I was at the house and the one that didn't have a single bit of problem, and right down in the middle of you. Didn't have any problem until Thursday morning. I went in and looked in the drain tile, and I, not involved, just happened to know, went and looked in the drain tile, and I said, I don't know, you only got one pipe coming in. Now, anybody that understands drain tile is supposed to go on the inside of your basement all the way around, then on the outside of your basement all the way around, and it's supposed to have bleeders through the footing to make it a connection. And then it runs, and it's supposed to have rock over the top of that, and then that runs into the pit that pumps it out.
But I found it all out in a week.
Okay. Well, what they had is they only had one pipe coming in, so right away, we haven't got x-ray eyes to look under the concrete, but we're saying, where's the other pipe?
Is it code to have drain tile on the outside and the inside?
Well, I'm not qualified to answer that, I don't know. I do know that years ago in Evansville, I'm talking 20 and 30 years ago, maybe 30 and 40 years ago, they didn't use it. Then it became more predominant to use. And there's areas where you'd say, well, you're pretty low. We all know you have a problem. But if you get up to Liberty Street, there's a couple areas in Liberty Street where you have the same problem. You got wet ground.
I got it.
So there are other areas in town. That doesn't make it. That's not trying to make you feel better. All it's trying to do is say the city's trying to find a fix. There are some options and possibilities. Can we make it, you'll never have water in the ditch? No. And anybody will be kidding you to tell you that. Should we try to make it where you don't have water in your basement and the water moves as fast as possible? Yes.
Now, Mason, I think that's a critical step right there in the building inspector's job, to check that before any of that gets covered up or covered in and buried. That would have stopped all that.
Well, in defense of everybody now, here's what happens. Is we were coming off of a lot of other areas where you